Welcome to this, our third episode of Decoded. Today we'll be covering self-service and everything that offers. Today we'll be covering sort of Michael's top tips, his how to get insights in seconds, how to get the most out of custom reports, to Michael's own hot tips and tricks. Plus, as always, as is favorited by all of you who are joining, we'll end with the Q&A, and we already have some good questions that have been sent in already. So before we kick off, a bit of housekeeping from me. The session is recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything or you want to look at the resources. We'll send a recording out in the follow-up. As mentioned, anything that Michael talks about or covers today will include in the follow-up as well, whether it's links or resources or demo apps or anything at all, we'll send that through. So I think that's it from me until later on. So without further ado, Michael, if you want to take it from here.
Of course, happy to.
Good stuff, good stuff.
All right, so first of all, the short agenda for today, which is a really short one. I'm going to do a step-by-step setup. It's going to be really short. I think many of you on this call has already seen the custom report, but it's also a good way of explaining some of the features and functions. So I'm going to jump through that, and then some more instructions for how this can be used, some hints, some tips and tricks, and then hopefully leave quite a bit of time for questions as well. These things tend to go a little bit longer than I expect all the time, but I'm going to try to keep this first part as short and snappy as possible, and then we'll jump over to the questions. So yeah, that's it. And I'm not going to do any more PowerPointing, so I'm going to jump over to demo and this little demo app. This application, as Jason mentioned, he will send things out. This is one of the things that he will send out after the session. It is an updated demo application for self-service custom report specifically, which has very similar to, if you've seen the old demo app, it's similar to that, but perhaps a few new things in here as well that might be useful. Yep, so you'll be able to do exactly what I'm doing here in this application yourself. I'm going to start by actually doing something as crazy as building a custom report myself, and that one's going to show you how to get started. So just a completely new sheet in this app. And this, by the way, is how many of our customers use the custom report. They add it to the last sheet of the app as a catch-all, trying to get sort of everything in that didn't fit in the general application. Typically, you do have an application with a dashboard, with perhaps some analytics, maybe even some pages with only like pure reports, and then the custom report is there to catch everything else that the user wants to explore in a safe and easy way without being able to, or without having to edit in Qlik. So, custom report. You find it obviously within the custom objects. We put it on the sheet. We start adding what we call a data set. And in my case, I'm going to add, well, everything from this data model that I have. I have a very small data model, only like, I don't know, 30 dimensions, 30 measures, or even less. So I'm going to add all of those in just to give a starting point, and I'm going to call this one everything. So that's my first data set. Now, obviously, as a developer, I would have to make sure that everything that I select here in dimensions and measures actually work well together, so that we don't have anything in here that will cause the user to get too lost once they start doing analysis. As you can see now, one of these are an invalid dimension. It's because the dimension actually isn't correct in my master item. I was adding master item dimensions and measures. It doesn't have to be the master item dimensions and measures. You can use directly the fields, and then you'll be able to choose if you use a sum or a count or something like that. But I would definitely recommend using master items because there are some other advantages of doing that. I'm going to remove that invalid one. It doesn't really matter. It just doesn't show up if it's invalid, so it's not a big problem, but I'm going to remove it anyway just for clarity. Just to showcase a little bit, I'm going to add one more data set. So, I'm going to add another data set, and by doing that, I'm just going to go in, select year, month, year, I don't know, country, channel, transaction ID. I'm going to add those, and then I'm going to look at some measures. I'm just going to do a few of them: sales, margin, discount. I'm going to add that. Now, and I managed to select the invalid one. Let's just do those. That's fine. And now, as you can see, we have the first data set on here. So the first concept that we should be aware of is that switching between data sets. Now, we have everything, and we have dataset 1. As you see, now this is all blank. This is not a good place to start. So what I should probably do is select 1 or 2 dimensions and measures, assuming I probably know where people should get started. Maybe I always want them to start in a table with maybe these dimensions and measures. Then I can save that as a default state. Now, the next time the user opens this, it will open it up in a default state, which will be this one as a starting point. The same thing can obviously be done for the other data set, and then I can save a default state for that one too. So each data set has a default, and that means that whenever I open a new data set, it will bring me to that. So if I move to the other one that I call data set, it's not going to show anything because I didn't save a default for this one. If I do that, go in and just go into my little data set, and I save the default state. Now, the next time it will actually open up with this one as the starting point instead of just a blank page, which is a good practice. Use very few dimensions and measures on this first one to make sure that it opens quickly. Do something that renders and gets up there. So if you have a larger data volume, you don't get too long of load times as the initial one. Some people even start with this one blank because they want it blank, and that's perfectly fine. But just make sure that users know what to do. So we talked about defaults, we talked about presets. The other third thing here is bookmarks, which the user then themselves can save. So let's say I started here, but actually I want a third dimension, and I want this one, and I want this in a straight table. Then I just go in and select that, and I want to change the order as well. So now I have a different one. I can save this one as my own bookmark. So I can create a new bookmark, and this is just the normal Qlik Sense bookmark functionality. There's nothing weird about this. It will open up the custom report with the correct report. So let's say this is my report, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to save it. Now I can go back to that at any point and say that this was my report. So as simple as that, we have, from a developer perspective, first started with the defaults and the presets, and then from a user perspective, done the bookmarks. As an end user, I'm going to show a few things that perhaps not everyone is aware of. So the functionality inside the custom report for the end users. First of all, we have the concept of how this is built and how it works. So the areas around are there to select your dimensions and measures. So everything outside the visualization or table itself is how we control the visualization inside. This visualization inside, it could be a table, could be a bar chart, could be one of these many different types of visualizations. They're created on the fly. So nothing is being calculated unless we make selections and tell it to visualize it. So the communication here goes from the outside to the inside. There is a few smaller exceptions with pivot tables, but apart from that, no communication goes from the inside visualization to the outside. And that's to make sure that we have good performance and good stability in how it works. So if I change a column order here inside the table, it will not change up here. But if I change something up here, now it will reset to whatever sorting order I have up here. So the outside controls the inside, and that goes for everything. It also goes for when we're saving presets, saving defaults, saving bookmarks. It goes with whatever is on the outside. And when we say the outside, we have the left menu. The left menu can be closed. Feel free to close that one down to get more space. You can control most of everything from this top menu. When I, for example, change and select a different chart, let's select a combo chart, that becomes a line. Let's see something else. Let's do a Vizlib bar chart. Now we have a bar chart. As you can see, these are now disabled because if I select a bar chart, a one-dimensional bar chart, it will only allow me to have one dimension, and it will deselect the other ones, which is obviously the only way that we can do this visualization. If I skip to a different visualization, then we can of course do everything again and it changes. The typical setup here is that we have the Vizlib ones in one color and the Qlik ones in a different color so that we can separate them. It definitely doesn't have to be that way. It can be in any way that you want. We could also do, for example, a two-dimensional bar chart, and then we can have 2 dimensions and 1 measure. Now we can also sort. So still using this, what we call the analytics search bar, we can do sorting. So if we change the sort order here, we can sort by measure. All of this happens inside the custom report itself, so you don't have to sort of do anything outside. You can also do selections, filtering, so you don't have to add extra filters on a page where you have a custom report. The filtering can be done inside the custom report. You also have what we call info. And so if I have country and if I have color, if I have, I don't know, consumables or channel, I can look at info. And info will tell me a bit of information around the dimension, such as sort of what the data is like, lots of details, but also the description for that. And you can choose how much of this information should be displayed. We even get all the tags for that dimension in here. So lots of information to be displayed. This can be particularly useful if, let's say, let's do that one, same one again, and I search for channel in the analytics search bar. I will get channel, and I have the information button up here as well. So this way I can check, oh, actually, oh, that's not the one I want, then I can choose a different one. So easy as that. That's the normal setup and the functionality of the analytics search bar. I actually recommend using this top bar a lot more. Many people still have the left-hand menu. It's like the old version of it, and there is some functionality that might be more convenient to use there. But other than that, you can definitely use the top bar as well. So up to you. This part here on the right is our customizable buttons. These buttons can be added, one or more, and they can do different things. They can do exports, like here, where we export the data or export a PDF, but they can also do any of the actions that we allow that the Vizlib object allows normally. So as you might or might not be aware, we have what we call Vizlib actions, which could be things like changing a variable, opening a tab on a new sheet, opening a URL, creating a bookmark. There's lots of things that we can do with these actions, and all of those actions can be connected to these buttons. For example, this means that we could do something a little bit more advanced. So we could, for example, have a complete change of language inside the custom report. If you have let's say in this case we have Swedish, German, and English, and we can change the language of the dimensions and measures by just changing a simple variable in the back end. So by doing this, we can control what language we get these dimensions in, just by using a master item with the correct naming and picking up the correct name for each one in the different languages. So we could do the rest of this presentation in Swedish if we wanted to. Assuming most of you will not want that, so I'm going to jump back to a different sheet again. I want to show you one thing here around groups. So you can group all the dimensions and measures. Grouping them is super simple. Just make sure that you use a master item. And if you were paying close attention earlier, you actually noticed that we saw some tags. So on when we were looking at the info for the different dimensions, and that little tag that you saw actually controlled the grouping. And there's clear instructions on this in the help file, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get to. But you can put any dimension inside one or many of these groups, and you can also sort and control how the groups are sorted. So this way you can control quite a large number of these dimensions and measures. Probably worth mentioning here, we have customers with hundreds of dimensions and hundreds of measures in the same custom report. It works and should perform, and if it doesn't, let us know, but perhaps not recommended. Try to divide it up in different data sets to make it more manageable for the users. Usually that's a better setup, but you can have hundreds of dimensions and measures if you want. When we're talking about performance, there's one more thing that customers that I meet often don't realize, and it's a super simple one. And we can actually get this button to appear. So we can get update layout to appear. And we get what happens here is actually it waits with updating until I'm done with selection. So let's say I want these two, I want that, I want this in the table, and now I'm going to update the table. This way, it's a little bit less interactive. As you see now, it doesn't change right away, which is, yeah, it's not as great, but It means that we're also not sending any requests for calculations to the Qlik engine, which means that we get a bit of a snappier performance once we do decide to update this table. But now we'll just get that request done really quickly. So that was the sort of going through the basics and some hints and tips and tricks. I think that covers most of the ones that I wanted to do here. Just making sure that I didn't miss anything. No, I think that should be it. So these are setting it up and the basic functionality. As you can see, you should be able to set this up within just a few minutes. It shouldn't take that long. And you have then all the functionality in here. Like I said, don't add any other filters and any other things on this page unless you feel like you really have to. There's enough functionality inside the custom report to actually handle most of the things that you want the users to do with the data. And with that, I think I'm already overrun my time, and I'm going to hand over to Jason to cover some questions.
Awesome, Michael. That was fantastic. Thank you. And I don't know if it's just my screen, but your mouse seems to sort of have a short delay between following you around. So at some point you've had 4 or 5 mice sort of static around your mouse. It's been very interesting to watch, as well as everything else.
Apologies for that. Probably just me moving things around a little bit too quickly. I'll try to move the mouse slower.
No, I'm sure it's not your end. It's probably just Zoom being Zoom. Yeah, so we have a number of questions. As I mentioned, if you have a question, click the Q&A button at the bottom, put your question there, and then I can ask it to Michael. But starting off, when using bookmarks within custom reports, they are sometimes not applied after a certain upgrade? Question mark.
So when using after an upgrade,
yeah,
it should always be there. I know they had some issues in the past with something similar. But no, they should always be there. And if they're not, let us know. Both defaults, presets, bookmarks, all of that should work across versions as long as you're upgrading. There shouldn't be any problems. And if you do, please do send that in to us, because in case there's something we're missing, some sort of edge case that we didn't catch, then let us know, and we should be able to fix it. As long as there's something that we can reproduce, we will fix it relatively quickly as well. But as far as I know, there's no such issues left right now.
Cool. I know there's sports articles as well that cover these sorts of things, so I can link that as well. And it's also just making sure you're using the correct data sets and sort of things like that, really. So yeah. All right, moving on. Next question. Can users add their own custom calculations?
Good question, actually. We were just playing around with that the other day together with one of the partners. I think I actually have a sheet in here. So I did a little bit of a testing. So this obviously is not like perfected in any way in terms of design, so bear with me. But let's say, for example, that we wanted to do a custom measure. So we actually want the user to be able to define something. Now, I've only done a stupid one up here. So, but opening this up, so Vizlib toolbar, I do sum of, we can't do sum of channel, let's do sum of expression 1, and enter. Now it creates a measure called sum, and as you can see, it updates here. So that was one. Let's see if we do another one. So let's do this one. Let's do count of, I don't know, count channel. Probably doesn't make any sense, but doesn't really matter. Now, if I select custom measure 2, that will pop up right here. So yeah, you actually can. And this is standard functionality, really. This is nothing too specific for the custom report itself, but it really adds an extra dimension if you have those users that are more advanced. The only thing to be aware of here is that obviously when you're giving this much freedom to the users, it basically means that they can do anything, right? They can do any stupid expression they want here. So there's a balance between what should we allow the user to do and not, because otherwise what we want to see is the custom report as a very safe sandbox where we know as sort of developers that whatever they choose, it's going to yield the correct results. It might not be the results that they want, but it will be the correct results, the correct numbers. So perhaps a bit of care to be taken there. So yeah, you can do that. You can do it like I did here with, and I'll actually make sure that we send out this app, which
Mhm.
also has the little
Good stuff.
template. So rather than the original getting started one, but with this one that has that, we'll send this out so you can take a closer look at exactly how that works. You could also use the input form and actually just write to a variable. This way you would also get access to the actual expression editor, even if you're just a normal user. So you could actually do, for example, do sales minus, yeah, but let's do sales minus margin actually. And then we could have that as the third one. So I didn't do that right. Let's see. Let's do another one. Try. Well, just anyway, playing with this a little bit. Margin. Okay. I thought I had this working. I'll make sure it works before we send this out. But you could use the input form as well and do the same thing. So yeah, that works.
Great stuff. Next one. I quite like this question actually. Can you set the dimensions by voice command as a microphone icon is visible in the dimension line?
Yeah, actually could. So I'm going to go to give this a try. So let's see if this works. Show me channel, color, year, sales. Yeah, almost. I'm not sure where we got median sales from, but yeah, close enough. So what it does is basically just a voice recognition that then translates into a text, and then the text is interpreted by the custom report. But yeah, you actually can.
Good stuff, good stuff. And this may be in response to the sort of the first question or second question. Does it do set analysis?
The custom expressions there. Yeah. You can. I mean, you could actually input any expression there, so you could do anything you want. I would probably recommend being a bit nice to the users. If you implement something like that, maybe help them by doing something a bit smarter than just giving them access to the expression editor, unless you know they're really advanced, because writing a set expression and the syntax for that is probably not the most user-friendly thing in the world. But yeah, you could.
Great stuff, great stuff. Good question here. When using custom reports, the level of customization for charts is limited. For example, custom report does not seem to support color customization of bars for bar charts. Is there a workaround?
Well, yeah, use Qlik and use edit mode and allow them to be developers. But I guess that's not the answer that you're looking for. We are adding a few more things. So there is a few settings available on right click when you have our visualizations. So especially within things like Vizlib table, there's a few things on right click. So for example, things like turning hover highlight on. There is we can actually merge rows, which is kind of a nifty little feature. So we have a few of these things, but yeah, we can easily add a few more. So what I would suggest here is if you have specific features that you would really want, like I really want to be able to, I don't know, control some specific color setting or something, then yeah, do let us know and we'll see if we can implement it. For now, we only have this on right click. We have been toying around with the idea of actually adding something like a customization bar, but at the same time, we don't want to rebuild Qlik. There's a really good editing tool in Qlik, so use that whenever you have more advanced ones. But let us know about these requests. Some of the things we can definitely put in there.
Great stuff, great stuff. Final question for the moment, I think, unless more start to come in. Does custom report work with Qlik Cloud?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, it does.
Great stuff. Nice, straightforward answer. So yeah, if anybody has any last minute questions, please pop them in now. And as I said that, two more have literally just come in. So we'll answer these and then we'll see what time we're at, Michael. Would it be possible to use a variable for setting the colors in the bar chart?
Not really, not yet, no. But that's something that we could think about. You would, no, not really, not now.
Cool. We'll definitely have to put that feature request link in the follow-up because we have a lot of good ideas in this.
Yep.
Next question, is it possible to automate export custom report, for example, in PDF?
So like this? Or are they talking about
I think
actually automating through? Yeah, so exporting to PDF, you could do that. I mean, it would work with imprinting. I'm not sure if that's the most convenient or most fitting solution. I get this question every now and then. I'm not entirely sure why people would want to use the custom report for something relatively static. I think that one of the interesting use cases that I do see around that is that, yeah, potentially somewhere in the future, we could have some sort of functionality where you can choose what to export and do that export and then schedule that export. For example, if we finally get that functionality from Qlik with exporting to image and PDF in cloud, then we could really easily combine that with automations in cloud. And then you could perhaps say that, hey, I really like this one, send this to me. I'm not sure what's happening with the export right now. And then you could just ask Qlik Cloud to send that to them. So I think that there's more that we can do once we get more traction in Qlik Cloud. And Qlik has now promised in Q3 that they will release support for export to image and PDF in third-party extensions in Q3. So we're looking forward to that, and then we can start building even more cool things that sort of make use of all the functionality in Qlik Cloud.
Awesome. Okay, final question, and then any other questions that we didn't get to answer, we will send through in the follow-up as well. Is there any limitation on the dimension and measure added to the data set and report?
No, not beyond sort of what, I mean, I think there is some sort of limitation on how many dimensions a Qlik chart will actually accept. I'm not sure how many dimensions a Qlik table, for example, will accept. It's the same limitation as it would be in sort of native, because it is the native table in that case. I'm not sure if it allows maybe 100 columns or something in the straight table. So I'm sure there is a limitation, but a realistic one, no, probably not. I mean, it wouldn't be a very realistic use case as far as I can tell.
Good stuff. And one more has just come in. It's not a question, it's a comment. Quite literally says, just a comment, the row merge and highlight features on the Vizlib table are awesome. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, I guess. Yeah, and do keep those things coming in. I mean, if there's things that you do very often and you want them in a custom report, it's not that difficult for us to add. It's just that we can't add everything. So we'll have to listen to you guys on what you really want, and then we'll add that.
Exactly. Thank you very much for that, Michael. That was hugely insightful. This has been Self-Service Decoded. As I mentioned, the whole recording plus the Q&A plus all the resources you mentioned, the demo apps, we'll send through in the follow-up. Any questions, you can reply to the follow-up, or you can add either of us on LinkedIn and ask us directly. So again, thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.